There is an election on August 6th in Michigan. I thought it would be helpful to discuss with you all my thoughts on this election, perhaps as a way to show the way I think folks can look at local elections, the importance of local elections, as well as I don't want to call them down ballot, but the greater effects this stuff can have for the country in general, even when it seems terribly specific. Here's what I'm talking about. The city of Dearborn. You may recognize it, oopsie daisy, you may recognize it from such things as, oh, that's painful. Such things as Mayor Abdullah saying that Joe Biden was effing up in Gaza, from being a district represented by Rashida Tlaib, various other sometimes national pieces of news coming out of this town. Tomorrow, they're voting on a charter. All around the neighborhood, I have been, it's a generous word, all along the nice neighborhood that's down the street from my wretched apartment complex, I've been seeing where I go to walk my dogs, because I don't have they don't care for the parking lot. I've been seeing signs from the Police and Firefighters Union saying vote no on the proposed charter. Well, that was awfully spishy to me. Wanted to see what's in this charter. Turns out it sounded spishy because it was spishy. Voters in Dearborn, this is from the Detroit Free Press, Niraj Wariku. God help me, I'm sorry, Niraj. You got a difficult... It's not that difficult of a name, I'm just not familiar with it. Anyway, Niraj, thank you for writing this. Voters in Dearborn will decide whether to approve changes to their city charter as the state investigates whether the commission that proposed the changes acted improperly in mailing flyers that urge residents to approve it. On the Dearborn ballot in next week's August primary election, voters can choose to approve or reject changes to their city laws proposed by the Dearborn Charter Commission, a 9-member body elected by voters, please note that, in November 2021, that has been discussing the changes for 2.5 years. The city revises its charter, which acts like a constitution, every dozen years, if approved by voters. Thing number one to note, even though it is not immediately obvious what this charter does, behold, it's a big deal. Imagine if in the United States we amended the Constitution once every 12 years. It's that big, but for a city as opposed to a country. When are they voting on it? In the primary. In the primary. Gang, go to every election that you can. There is usually, not always, but usually something like this. Major changes to your life happen all the time, and you have opportunities to participate in them all the time. And so rarely does anybody actually choose to participate. Tomorrow's an opportunity for Dearborn. The fundamental way in which our city operates is going to either change or not. And it's in a primary. An official with the Secretary of State's office told the Free Press that the Bureau of Elections will investigate a complaint that the Charter Commission violated its rules by using public money to create and send out flyers that read, "Paid for by the Dearborn Charter Commission." Last week, the Bureau mailed a letter to the Commission notifying them that they are looking into an ethics complaint, followed by Gary Warrenchak, a Dearborn resident who is a former state house representative and former Wayne County commissioner who was once chair of the county commission. Pause. I don't recognize Gary Warrenchak. I would assume based on what he is complaining against, that he is a conservative. But I want to be clear. I agree with him here. I think that complaint makes a lot of sense. I don't like the idea of the government using money to sway your vote one way or the other. It does not matter that I happen to support the changes proposed in this charter. By the way, if you are in Dearborn and you are watching this, I'm going to give you my pitch for it, but I highly recommend you do vote to approve these changes. Separate from that, though, the behavior of the commission in mailing out something that said, go vote this way or that. Against that. I can confirm that the Bureau of Elections has received a complaint regarding the alleged violation of the Michigan Campaign Finance Act and will investigate. Angela Benander, Director of Communications and Media Relations for Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, told the Free Press in a statement, I won't be able to provide any additional information. Okay. Here is what the changes proposed. The proposed changes include removing minimum staffing requirements for police officers and firefighters, which has prompted some Dearborn police and fire unions to urge residents to vote no on the proposal. Pause there. I think that is a bad call on their part. Minimum staffing requirements do not mean the staff will be removed. It simply means we are not required to have a certain amount of people, regardless of need. But frankly, I think that is the least consequential part of the proposed changes for that reason. Because again, it would not actually result in any tangible changes. It would simply remove the need to fill positions based on population. Here's where it gets interesting. Other changes include increasing the diversity on city boards and commissions, an important topic in a city that is more than 54% Middle Eastern. I want to point out the largest Lebanese population anywhere outside of Lebanon. Revamping the city's ethics board that currently includes the Corporation Council and Human Resources Administration to a board whose members are approved by the mayor and city council. Requiring city employees and elected officials, here's my big one, to disclose financial conflicts of interest. Pause. Pin in that. Returning to it in a minute. Protecting the health care benefits of retirees, awesome. Improving the civil service system to ensure best practices for hiring and promoting skilled people. Returning to the financial conflicts of interest. Do you recall the other day when I was talking about how Republicans are Republicans at all levels of government, and how I have seen in local governments, you will get a conservative in power, and suddenly, their friends that own construction companies get all the construction contracts. Suddenly, if there is an art installation needed in some place, it just so happens a piece of terrible art goes up, and the artist is a friend of somebody on the city council, and that person is a Republican. Yeah. This will help prevent that. It doesn't, to be clear, it doesn't only happen with Republicans. It's just that's the party of criminals. So, of course, it gets the most criminal behavior. But it does happen with Democrats as well. It does indeed. In fact, it happens more often with Democrats on a local level than it does with Democrats on the national level. But that's true of Republicans as well. Let's talk about this on the other side. So you see, gang, all I'm trying to talk about with you here is that local elections matter. They result in big changes. They have massive effects on your life. In fact, they generally have more effects on your life than national elections do. It makes more sense economically for big news agencies to talk about national issues so they can get a big, broad audience. Makes more sense on the internet, too. Big, broad audience. Talk about national stuff, world stuff. There's financial incentive to do that. But in terms of what your actual life is like, local elections are the main thing. Participate in those. Participate in those. Participate in every election that you can, and the world will become more like how you want it to, assuming you're voting for progressives.